Hello everyone, my name is Jeremy Tabris and today I'll be doing a presentation on fault tree analysis, also known as FTA. In this presentation I'll be covering the following: Introduction to fault tree analysis, how fault tree analysis is integrated in a project, the step-by-step instructions of using FTA, how FTA will be applied for swim lane cruise ship risk management project, the basic FTA symbols, the disadvantages and advantages of using FTA, and also other alternatives to FTA. So now what is fault tree analysis? In simple terms, FTA refers to a technique used to explore the various probable or actual factors of system product failure. In a more technical term, according to Versley and Goldberg in 2014, FTA is a systematic, top-down deductive and probabilistic risk assessment tool. In a fault tree diagram, events that do not have subdivisions are referred to as basic events. Also, the FTA analytical concept was developed by Bell Telephone Industries in 1969. FTA integrated in a project. Generally, undesired events can have many possible causal factors, requiring a top-down organization for effective visualization by management. For instance, FTA can be applied in the concept phase to detect and reduce probable failures. FTA can also be used in simulations during prototype testing to provide rapid detection of root causes. Now, the ability to detect causal factors mean that FTA can also be applied in the quality planning phase of a project as a function of ascertaining continuous process improvement. So how can we use FTA in a project? Here are some step-by-step instruction of how to use FTA in a project. So integration and implementation of FTA in a project entail a 5-step process. Number one, you pick a component for assessment. This function refers to the selection of an easy-to-use tree diagram. It could be, for example, like an eDraw. Number two, you detect the type of undesired events associated with a component under investigation. Number three, you list all probable causes for failure. Number four, you walk towards the root source of each fault until one reaches the basic event, which is the controllable factor. Number five, which is the last step, it involves the brainstorming of ideas on countermeasures for each identified root cause. So, alright, so we're going to talk about how FTA will be applied in swim lane cruise ship project. But before we continue, let us elaborate more about FTA. FTA can be used for many purposes in different organizations. As a matter of fact, FTA is one of the most common problem-solving tools. FTA lays out visual representation of relationships between steps in a process. FTA uses symbols to outline various points, causes, and effects in a process. For the sake of this presentation, to keep it simple, we will discuss the basic FTA symbols. Symbols are the circle, we have the umbrella shaped symbol with a curved lower edge, and we also have the umbrella symbol with a straight lower edge. The circle represents possible cause for the problem, which is always at the top of the diagram, or fault in the AND gate, the AND gate. The umbrella-shaped symbol with a curved lower edge means that for a fault to occur, at least one of the items below it signified by the circle must be true. Now, the umbrella-shaped symbol with a straight lower edge means that both conditions connected to the bottom of the AND gate must be true. Now, now the question is, how will FTA be applied in swim cruise ship project? So now that we have the basic idea of how and what the FTA diagram signifies, let us put it into perspective. For this project, we will be focusing on identifying some threats associated with this project. Now, one of the risks, which is a threat that has been identified, is accidents caused by fire. So fire now becomes the fault condition. So using the FTA approach, we will start brainstorming the possible causes of the fire and add them to the diagram. Fault 1, the ship electrical circuit failed. Now we're brainstorming, right? So the fault 1 is the ship electrical circuit failed. Fault 2, the fire extinguishers are not functioning. Fault 3, the electrical circuit switch malfunctioned. Fault number 4, one of the wiring connections failed. Fault number 5, the fire extinguishers were not installed properly. Now the next step is to examine each course in more detail. Now we do this to see if there might be multiple parts involved in those courses. For example, in order for there to be a fire, which is course number 2, both of the following must be met. The fire extinguisher failed, A, and B, the sprinkler system failed. Now notice that one of the circles has been replaced with an AND gate, AND gate. For condition number 2, which is the sprinkler failure, to be true, all of the conditions connected at the bottom of the AND gate must be true. In this case, the fire extinguisher must have failed, A. The sprinkler system must have also failed, B. So from this point, we will continue adding to the fault tree until there is no longer any contributing factors. So we keep going on and on and on and on and on until we say, okay, well, there's no more contributing factors. So this just gives you like an insight of how the FTA can be used to brainstorm and analyze, get more information about, threats associated with this project, risk associated with this project, and also opportunities associated with this project. Some of the advantages and disadvantages of FTA. Here are some advantages. Given that FTAs are based on logic, the tools identify undesired events deductively. Now, this will benefit a project by providing a logical sequence for countering identified failures. Also, the top-down FTA structure makes the team focus on only one error at a time, thus improving the margin of efficiency and effectiveness. Number 2, FTA has a connector function which exposes possible fault interactions and unwarranted system behaviors. And lastly, unlike many automated systems, FTA also accounts for human errors while accessing a full range of probable sources of errors. Here are some disadvantages. Now, for large projects, the use of FTA becomes a complicated process due to the high number of event subdivisions. FTA can only be applied by personnel with knowledge of the constituents under assessment. Number 2, in addition to the complexity in moving down subdivisions, it will require a considerable amount of time to reach the controllable event. Here are some alternatives to FTA and ETA. An ETA is an alternative to FTA. ETA meaning event tree analysis. An ETA is also a top-down assessment tool that can accomplish the objectives of an FTA. ETA trees start from the initiating event and then walk down towards the final undesired event. Also, according to Versley and Goldberg, ETA effectively considers domino effects, dependence, and timing as contributors to probable error events. Another alternative is the use of standard deviation. Now, in this step, the probabilities of top events have their standard deviations bounded. This alternative is used when the possibilities of primary events in FTA keeps changing or varying. Therefore, building standard deviations avoids the fluctuations from the primary events. Here's a recap of what we've covered in this presentation. In this presentation, we've covered introduction to fault tree analysis, how FTA is integrated in a project, the step-by-step instructions of using FTA, the basic FTA symbols. I mean, there's a lot of symbols out there, but we've covered just the basic. How FTA will be applied in swim cruise ship risk management project. We also covered the disadvantages and the advantages of using FTA and also shared some alternatives to FTA. I do hope that by now you have at least a better understanding of how FTA is used and utilized. It could be used in different organizations, different size business sizes, and have like a better insight, right, as to how FTA can be used. Thanks for being a part of this presentation. We'll look forward to hearing from you again. Until then, take care. Bye bye now.